Welcome back to the Lap Podcast. I am Tristan Ryans alongside the one and only Khaki Kevin Walker, hosting your destination Formula One podcast following the Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button to help support the channel. Costs you absolutely nothing at all. We just crossed the 80 subscriber mark, Kevin. So what do these people need to do if they haven't subscribed already?
Well, if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead. Look below. You got all the socials posted there, the TikTok, the YouTube, and the Instagram. Follow us there. And then make sure you go to YouTube, and that's where you can find our shorts. That's where you'll be able to find this lovely video that you're probably watching on YouTube right now. And you'll make sure to hit that bell button, hit the subscribe button, leave comments. We love comments. You don't leave enough comments. Leave comments. Let us know what you think about our content. If you love it, don't tell us if you hate it. Just tell us if you have some opinions or if you have some things that you constructive criticism is what we invite, right, Tristan?
Sure. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Look, at the end of the day, we are at the 80 subscriber mark and we are looking to hit 100 before the end of the season. We've got 7 more race weekends to go. We've got Singapore coming on up, but this one, we're going to be recapping the events that happened in Baku. But if you haven't joined the TLP Army, you haven't joined the subscribers, you could be number 81 with the TLPs. So give us a like, comment, share, all the good stuff. And with that all out of the way, let's
hold on.
Huh?
Before we hop in.
Man, what's up?
Might be on the precipice of something big TLPs.
Okay.
Just
okay, that's the tease. That's all we're going to give you until we have something official. Let's not overpromise and underdeliver. Let's get there. But we do have some stuff working in the background. Hopefully,
we'll always deliver.
Fun big changes are coming. Some big changes,
possibly.
But with all that out of the way, let's get right into this. Max freaking Verstappen in Baku, solidifying himself once again as that mucking guy. Look, odds are looking long, but Max Verstappen keeping himself in play for a 5th consecutive Drivers' Championship after winning in Azerbaijan this past weekend. A dominant drive from pole position, securing P1 with some mixed conditions. You know, Q3 was kind of all over the place, but he won the Grand Prix. Won the Grand Prix feature race by 14.5 seconds over George Russell, leaves him 69 nice points behind title frontrunner Oscar Piastri with 7 feature races, 3 sprints to go between Austin, Brazil, and Qatar. So Kevin Walker, Khaki Kevin Walker, can Max and Red Bull pull off the impossible? Can Max Verstappen win a 5th consecutive World Drivers' Championship?
Can they? Yes. Mathematically, they literally can. Will they? It's hard, dude. But we're talking about the inevitable here. We're talking about the guy that does things that other people just don't do. And I say the guy because, I mean, were we really talking about Red Bull or are we talking about Max Verstappen, right? It's tough. It's going to be hard. But if anybody can do it on this, it's going to be Max for sure.
Yeah. Back-to-back wins in Monza and Baku. Look, if the car has the ability, I don't think you can rule Max out at all. He's taken a car that you and I and a lot of the Formula One fandom, a lot of the TLPs even, believe is effectively maybe an upper midfield car right now. It's about on par with probably a Williams, if we're being completely honest. And the guy has found ways to win at multiple points in this season, like I just mentioned, back-to-back race wins. And there seems to be this sense of like renewed optimism, renewed energy within the Red Bull pit wall. Lauren Mekies has taken over this show, and he's already seemingly making a difference there. A little bit more technical background with Lauren Mekies.
Yeah, I did see this on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. You can follow them. Formula Racers. They put a tweet out saying that Red Bull have unlocked something with their floor upgrade. They tweeted that they got their information from gpblog.com. Look, there's a lot of different ways that you can navigate the F1 landscape. Everybody can tweet something different. All you gotta do is put a red little siren and it looks official. Even if this is true, even if this isn't true, it's obvious that this Red Bull car is not operating the same as it was at the beginning of the year. Maybe it's still a midfield team at some point, somehow, some way, but this car is better than it was at the start of the year for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, Max is pulling every ounce out of this car as it stands. Like I said, even if it's an upper midfield car, it's probably net competing with Williams on certain weekends, right? Yuki Tsunoda, if you want to call him like a net negative midfield driver, it's all over the damn place. But Max Verstappen's keeping this thing in the upper echelon of the points, keeping it interesting every race weekend. He's really making your boys work for it, if we're being completely honest, because nobody else on the grid is a threat to McLaren at the moment for pole position, for race wins, except for Max Verstappen. God forbid if he was driving a Ferrari, or a Mercedes right now, you might be shaking in your boots a bit because he probably have more than 4 wins. But Max Verstappen's kicking ass. But the question of will he? I have a hard time believing that Oscar Piastri is going to have a run of form as rough as Baku going forward. I don't know that it's going to happen again, at least across 7 more race weekends. Previously, he had the longest non-DNF streak at about 34 races, if I'm not mistaken, in a row where he had no DNFs. And he scored points in, I think, every single one of those races. McLaren struggled a lot in Azerbaijan. Based on what we've seen this year, it looks more like an exception to the rule rather than the rule that McLaren are going to have a bad setup weekend. They're going to just struggle with the car. High-speed straights, a lot of wind, and a lot of uncomfortability kind of caught both of the drivers out, if we're being honest. And don't worry, we are going to be talking about Lando Norris at length a little bit later.
Yay.
But everything about Baku and everything about Monza do translate into what Red Bull does characteristically well, which is high-speed cornering, but mostly high-speed straight line speed. The aerodynamics with Red Bull have been a strong suit that have carried over from the Adrian Newey time with the team. And I think this was just a really strong weekend for them, just in general. Max has won here before as well. It's not like he's lacked the familiarity with what it takes to win in Baku. But it just kind of all came together for them, and it all kind of fell apart for McLaren, right?
Talking about this race weekend in particular, yes.
Yeah. Because, I mean, in Monza, they were able to they rounded out the podium in P2, P3, but it just seemed like there were just moments this weekend that just kind of caught them out. Red Bull, at least for now, just appear a lot closer. Max is a major part of the ability to be fighting at the front. I can't with confidence say they're going to be able to nail the next 7 race weekends, though.
Right.
That's where it all comes together, is can they do this 7 more times? Because one way that Max can win this championship straight up is 7 straight wins. You'd have to sweep the board, run the table, whatever.
And he'd win by 1 point.
And he would win by 1. Singapore, Austin, Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, Qatar, and then Abu Dhabi, grabbing all 175 possible race points. If he swept the rest of the way, he would grab a total of 199 between that and the sprints. So he'd have to overcome being down 34% of the remaining points left that are attainable on the board, and then find a bit extra to secure this championship. That's what Max needs to win a 5th.
That would be the most. I mean, I don't even know what you could compare that to. That's such an insane stretch for somebody to go on.
It is almost unprecedented. And I say almost because the closest thing to this was 2007 with Kimi Räikkönen at Ferrari, when he had to come back to win the championship out from underneath the McLarens of Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. He had, at the time, now to be fair, the points were a bit different at this time, right? So now we have 25 points for every race win. You only had 10 per race win for finishing in first place. He was down with 16 points with 5 races to go and had only 29%. He would have needed to get the 29% of the remaining points of the 50 available left at the time. And he did pull it off to win it all. So there was a bit of a precedent to say that, look, it's possible. It is not, there's a non-0% chance, right? Like if Oscar Piastri DNFs, Lando Norris also has a bit of a run of bad luck. McLaren just start botching setups, which, look, I'm not trying to jinx it for you. It's not like I'm trying to ruin your day.
Well, it's not like McLaren's going to finish off the podium. If Max wins, it's not a guarantee that McLaren's going to be 2-3 every time.
Yeah,
We've
it's
seen
also
that
not a
before.
guarantee that McLaren are also going to nail a lot of these races either, right? Like,
Yeah.
what if they start botching where they botched a lot last year, right? They had opportunities to win 7, 8, 9 more races probably than they did, and eked out a constructors championship all the while. But I'm just saying, I think it would take a lot, and I mean a lot, of legit bad luck for McLaren to botch this. They're already going to secure the Constructors' Championship. They could have done it in Baku, which, again, I'll mention a little bit more at length later. But it would take this kind of weekend, at least 6 of these kinds of weekends where there's just so much dysfunction across the board for Max to remain in this championship fight. So as much as I think it's possible, mathematically, it just feels very unlikely, at least with how much time is left, at least with how good McLaren, with all due respect, really have looked this year at times. And there are some circuits coming up, most notably Singapore next, which is a higher downforce circuit that is not something that characteristically Red Bull have really succeeded at over the years, is winning in high downforce. 2023 being the exception to this, because 2023 they beat everybody everywhere except at Singapore. So I'm just saying. There's a chance.
There's never a 0% chance whenever Max Verstappen is at stake. It's like you said, it's mathematically, it's technically still possible. Is it? One might say it's not as likely. We'll revisit our what's more likely later on in the show. But one might say that it's not very likely, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
I mean, look, it's going to add at least some intrigue, hopefully, over the next 7 races. It's going to be a topic of conversation going into Singapore. We're going to have a whole extra weekend to consider what kind of mathematical probabilities they would need between McLaren and Oscar and Lando and Max. Like, what kind of eventual, like, how do the circumstances have to change? The reality is, I think a one more race win or 2 more race wins from Oscar Piastri, which over the next 7 races seems pretty possible, pretty much puts Max out of the contention. But never say never.
It also puts someone else out of contention. So,
which again, we'll talk about at length in a little bit. But to the TLPs, do you think Max can do this? Can he win a 5th consecutive drivers' championship? Let us know in the comments what you think has to happen. What can happen? Will Oscar Piastri, will McLaren fumble this? We do want to hear from you guys. Maybe you'll make Kevin a bit more depressed, but but I do want to hear from you guys down in the comments. And I know he does as well. Moving on to the next. I'm going to table McLaren for one more segment. I'm going to table them for one more segment. Look at the camera for it. I can focus. There we go. But I do want to talk about the other major headline from the podium this weekend. Carlos Sainz, Williams.
Now that's something I can get excited about.
A podium, their first podium finish since 2021 when George Russell grabbed a P2 in Belgium. Sainz started in P2, brought it home in P3, ironically behind George Russell, completing the overcut with a perfectly executed pit is really what it took for Mercedes to make that even happen. My question to Kevin Walker, who is the resident Williams believer, he was 10 toes down at the beginning of this year. I thought he was a bit crazy.
Bit crazy. You told me that I was straight up lying.
But this man's been 10 toes down all season. There's basically a second team is Williams. How big is this for Williams, Kevin?
It's bigger than life itself, Tristan, for being honest. Not much can compare to this kind of a thing. I mean, all the Super Bowls combined for the New England Patriots don't even come close to this podium for Williams, if we're being honest with ourselves. And I'll throw all 5 of the Cowboys championships that I wasn't alive for in there as well. Just nothing comes close to this win for Carlos Sainz. And I know it's not technically a win, but it's a win. You know what I mean? It's a win. No, it's huge, dude. It's big. But we can't get too far into this because at the end of the day, a lot had to go wrong and a lot had to kind of be crazy for this to happen. It's not like outside of Alex Albon, who's had a really, really, really good season, Carlos Sainz has been the one struggling the most, getting comfortable in that Williams car. This was big for Williams in general, but this was big for Carlos and his future with Williams. Alex Albon's been good all year. He's been stellar. Outside of a couple of times, he's looked really really good, and I'm pretty sure he's probably brought in majority of the points for Williams. I don't know that for a fact.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely still leading in that regard. 70 points to Carlos Sainz's 31. So it's still
Okay.
very much so Alex Albon's year.
So there you go. And so this for Carlos is big because it kind of gives not necessarily gives him motivation, but it kind of makes him want to keep going along this track with Williams. You know, he's been pretty frustrated and he's been verbal at times about being in Williams this year. And I know some fans were kind of like, "Oh, is like Carlos unhappy at Williams?" And I think that that's just how people react when they're in a new environment and things aren't necessarily going their way. But you know, a momentum shifter like this for the weekend for Williams, for Carlos Sainz specifically, is huge, and it's going to continue on. One guy that I haven't named is James Vowles. I mean, a weekend like this is a kind of thing that Williams hell a year ago, 2 years ago. This was unfathomable. This was not even in the realm of possibilities to happen. No matter if all these crazy things happened or not, it was not even, no, Williams could not land a podium. There's just no way, no chance, no how. So it's huge, it's big, it's going to continue on with the momentum of Williams. And as they shift and as they change and turn into what I would like to consider a top 4, top 3 contender, yeah, I mean, it's good momentum for sure.
I mean, as far as Carlos Sainz specifically, I mean, it's a massive vindication. Going along with what you said, I mean, it's massively vindicating for him because he was the odd man out after Ferrari's pick of Lewis Hamilton last year, right?
Yep.
It just is what it is when it came to that decision making, and Sainz had to make his decision. Everybody in the paddock was trying to figure out where the hell is Carlos Sainz going to sign. There was an entire episode dedicated to it in Drive to Survive this year, as it should have, between that and Alpine, right? Between going to Alpine or between going to maybe even the Stake Project or between going to Williams, that was a huge topic of conversation. But he put his faith in James Vowles. He put his faith in Williams. He put his faith alongside Alex Albon, his teammate, having good chemistry there. And what they're building at Williams, you mentioned James Vowles. That's massively vindicating for him. His first podium as the team principal since the guy joined in 2023. It's huge. It's huge. Look, Sainz has struggled a lot at points this year too. You've also brought this up. He's had ups and downs and DNFs and, just bad results, especially in comparison to what Albon's doing, which is special this year, with all due respect. It really
one of the best drivers this year, Albon has. He's been one of the best drivers of the year.
He's P8 in the constructors. He was P7 for a good chunk of the season before, the strong result for Mercedes this weekend. But yeah, for him specifically, though, Sainz, I mean, a banger lap in Q3, mixed conditions at that time too, to put it in P2 in a Williams, unheard of 2 years ago, and kept that podium place. Held off a Mercedes towards the end of the race too. We were all, of course, watching Lando and seeing what he was going to do against Yuki and Liam towards the end stages of the race. But I think I disagreed with what F1's coverage was, because to me it was, dude, Kimi's getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And it came down to him getting almost in DRS, but Carlos just put his pedal to the metal. He went all in and held the Mercedes out of DRS range and brought it home in P3. Like, he made the most of the opportunity in Azerbaijan. For him, I'd say this gives him a ton of confidence when it comes to the move that he made to Williams, his ambitions for 2026 as well, and even beyond. It's going to give him a ton of confidence. Super happy for Carlos. And speaking about Williams even more specifically, this is a drive that basically locked them up for P5 in the constructors, in my opinion.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to go ahead and look it up. So in 6th place is V-Carb with 72 points.
They're 29 points behind. Yeah.
And 4th place is Red Bull with 272. And then right there in the middle, pretty much solidified their spot. Number 5, Williams with 101 points. They have crossed the 100 point mark.
Yeah, 100%. And like their next
Wild.
two closest the next two closest constructors, it would take something incredible for VCarb to make up 29 points over the next 7 races. Aston Martin are a little bit behind them at 39 points over the next 7 races, right?
Dude,
They're
Williams,
the third.
I'm looking at it right now, dude. Williams had 17 points last year altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say this specific race weekend, I mean, they basically got all that. Like, it's crazy what they've been able to do.
Wild.
And look, they become the third non-top 4 team as well this year to make the podium. This has been a really special year outside of the front.
A lot of
you
parity.
could argue that
A lot of parity.
Well, like you could argue that, the championship battle hasn't been as interesting as we'd hoped. And I think that's something that a lot of Formula One fans share. I think even you and I, because we were hoping that it'd be a lot closer between Lando and Oscar. But what we're seeing on the podium this year is super special. We got to see Isaac Hadjar grabbing the podium in the Netherlands, right? We got to see Nico Hulkenberg drive the wheels off a stake F1 car in Great Britain. We got to see Carlos Sainz here in Baku grab a P3. We got to see a rookie Kimi Antonelli grab a P3 in Canada. We've seen a lot of really interesting podiums this season. And again, just touching on Val's first podium since becoming team principal, I think everybody loved that. I can't think of a single person who on Hater Watch was even like, not happy for the guy, right?
No, even Mercedes, where Val's got his start, where he came from. I saw they put a little post out and called him a bastard, but congratulated him for the win. And again, it's not a win, but I mean, you have to think about it in the context of things. It's a massive
for a
win.
midfield team down. This is the equivalent of your win. This is the highlight of their season, with all due respect. Sure. And vindication for everybody who's a part of this Williams project, because this is a lot of enthusiasm they're going to be able to carry into 2026 and these new regulations that they themselves have said that's what they've been focusing on. Every year since 2023 has really just been we'll wait and see what happens, but our optimism, we're putting it all into 2026. If you're doing these kinds of things and you have this kind of confidence, you have this kind of momentum, look, and it's recency bias included, of course, in 6 or 5 more race weekends, this is maybe not going to be the most prevalent headline of the last 10 races. But for everybody talking about this project, who's involved in this project, like they've been dead set on 2026 and beyond. It seems like they're going to have the right power unit with Mercedes, and it seems like they've got the right drivers between Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz. They've got the right team principle. They've got the development.
Really good chemistry.
They've got great chemistry up and down the organization. They've also got the financial infrastructure. They brought in so much money. Everything that's going on in Williams right now is just pure optimism. I'm excited to see what they do in 2026 and beyond. I'm really curious to see if they're going to be, how close to the front they really will be this time next year. I really am curious about that. But speaking of the TLPs though, what do you guys think of this Carlos Sainz podium? What do you guys think of what's going on at Williams? Please let us know down in the comments. We're incredibly excited. Let us know if you're bullish, you're bearish on this. What do they look like in 2026? Just give us anything that you guys think, because honestly, we'd love to engage, hear what the rest of the Formula One community is thinking about what the hell is going on over there at Williams. I just know that for a fact, pretty much everybody's excited about it. I can't think of anybody who's been like, oh, boo-hoo, who cares? No, this is something special. This is something
maybe
special.
Alpine.
Yeah. Maybe Alpine. Yeah. But let's move a little bit forward. We got to talk about it. I've teased it enough. We do. Azerbaijan, Baku was an absolutely missed opportunity for Lando Norris, a golden opportunity, if you will. Look, Kevin, I think you're going to have to come back. We got to talk about it. Look, Oscar DNF'd after a terrible start, by the way. He went from I think 6 or 7 on the grid, 6 on the grid, or even higher. I can't remember exactly. All I know is that he stalled out after jumping the start and he DNF'd. So even as a McLaren fan, that was just a blow. But I know you're more of a Lando guy. And Lando just didn't meet the moment. He started in 7th.
All right. Just let me do this. Let me
finish the lead. Let me finish the lead.
All right.
Then you get your moment. Look, he cut just 6 points out of Piastri's lead following this DNF. The difference standing at exactly 1 race difference, 25 points. Now Kevin Walker has Lando Norris already checked out of this championship. Let's go.
You remember that weekend where Lando Norris had an incident with Oscar Piastri and the vibes were already low?
You're talking about
And it was
Canada?
like, yeah, he had an incident. Oscar won. It kind of seemed like that was the beginning of the end for Lando.
Well, Canada, he didn't win. He got P4, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, either way. This weekend was worse than that. This is the worst weekend that I've
no, you're
experienced.
thinking of the Dutch Grand Prix. You're thinking of the Netherlands when he DNF'd.
Yes, whenever he tried to mow the lawn and then incident and then everything.
Well, there's been a couple this year, but continue.
This past weekend was worse than that. And let me explain why.
Is this the low for the season right here?
It was right there, dude. It was right there. Not only in the race, but qualifying too. It was right there for you to take advantage of, Lando. If he was going to be able to turn it on, if he had that dog in him, if he had the ability to say, "Oh my goodness, this may never happen again. Oscar's off the track. I can gain 25 points today," and he didn't do it. He didn't do it. I mean, hell, he couldn't even get on the podium. Let alone, I mean, it would be one thing if I was like, okay, I get it. Max Verstappen finished in front of you. He's Max Verstappen. That's fine. Whatever. Couldn't even get on the damn podium. And look, we're all happy for Williams. Trust me, I am. Great. Love Williams. We just did a whole segment about it. But would really rather have seen you there, Lando. Let's just be honest about it, okay? But you weren't there. And I think that, yeah, I mean, we talked about it. That was the beginning of the end. This was books closed. Books closed. This is between Oscar and, I guess, Max, if Max wants to do something. So it was a fun run. It was a good run. It was a good ride. There was ups, there was downs, a lot of downs. This doesn't make me not a Lando fan. This is just reality check, right? This is, hey, my team is as good as I thought they were, but a certain player on my team wasn't near as MVP quality as I thought they were. And that, that's a tough pill to swallow, man. That's a tough pill to swallow. But we move on. We see what 26 is like. Maybe this is the only chance we'll ever have. Who knows? You got to take advantage, dude. You got to take advantage. It was right there for the taking. You should have at least. And if somebody wants to be like, oh, well, the race didn't go his way, well, then what the hell happened in qualifying? What the hell happened in qualifying then? Why you couldn't even get into the top 5 of qualifying? If Oscar goes out, that dog inside of you should
mixed
catch
conditions.
A flame.
You got to show up here. Yeah,
you should catch a flame, and you should be like, this is my opportunity more now than ever to put it on pole, put it at least in the podiums, and be like, I've got a legit possibility, a legit chance of fighting for a win tomorrow. And guess what? Tristan, if he puts that on podium for qualifying and then turns around and we have the same result with Oscar and he's fighting from 3, 4, 2, whatever, and just say he doesn't get pole, so say Max gets pole. He's fighting from 2, 3, 4, and Oscar goes out DNFs. Dude, you're right there. You're actually there. I get it. He couldn't place in the win. He couldn't place in the win. He couldn't place in the race because of how bad he did in qualifying. I'm more pissed about qualifying than I am from the race itself because qualifying was right there.
Because even in qualifying, Oscar DNF'd, right? Excuse me, he finished in P9. I botched this earlier. He finished in P9 in qualifying ahead of Charles, who DNF'd as well. So, like, you had a golden opportunity to start ahead by a significant margin and didn't.
Yes,
you only started one row
and you
ahead.
did. You screwed up qualifying and you screwed up the race day. And for me, I'm sorry, that book's closed. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I'm still
let you vamp.
I'm still a Lando Norris fan, and to the TLPs that are hating on me, whatever. Like, it doesn't mean I'm jumping off the Lando Norris fan train. Like, I'm still a fan of his, but you also have to realize the true expectations of a driver or of a player in sports, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, one of my favorite players is an MVP caliber player when he's not. You have to recognize who the MVPs are. And for this particular season, I thought that my driver had a real chance. Speaking of the MVP, as if drivers championship, whatever. And it just wasn't the case.
Yeah.
We move on. 2026.
Well, before we move on, I also want to throw my sense in here. Like I'm happy you got it out.
Don't want to
now
hear
you got to
it.
listen to me say it. You got to hear me say it. Okay. So look,
I hear it over the
this
phone
is
enough.
Look, this is a tough enough weekend for McLaren. Like a truly tough weekend for the first time in a little while. And look, gusty, windy, high-speed streets of Azerbaijan, but like there were elements of this race that very well played into what McLaren do well. Like there are low downforce moments in this circuit. The street circuit's a lot of hard turning. There were moments where McLaren could have found time, they just couldn't fight it. So like as a team, things just didn't quite click. However, even with that caveat, this was a key moment in the championship, not just for the team who dropped out of winning the Constructors as everybody expected them to this weekend. They did not win the Constructors officially yet because of the performance, but namely Lando. And only being able to muster a P7 in qualifying, you had the jump on Oscar there, saddled behind a DRS train of Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson, who, with all due respect, come on, guys, not at Lando's level. Just not there. Who are driving cars that are also not the McLaren level. And I've said all year, and I'm going to reiterate it here, and I know a lot of TLPs, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, but like this is just becoming the truth. Lando does not have the killer instinct. And this weekend showed it. The moment Oscar DNF'd, it's time. Lock the hell in. You have to find a way to make places. Even if he would have made an ambitious strategy call the way he did in Hungary to win in Hungary, right? Make an ambitious strategy call to try to go, okay, let's overcut, right? The degradation on the hard tires could last longer. We're gonna undercut, right? At the end of it all, this was your opportunity to carve out that shot at the title again. You don't get opportunities like this. I said it earlier today in the podcast, and I'll say it again here. Oscar had 34 races in a row of consecutive finishes, and a majority of those, at the least, were points finishes. He just doesn't have the instinct. And it's disappointing from a fan perspective because we just want there to be a championship fight. We want so badly for something to come down to Abu Dhabi, and it's just not happening. No matter how much, whether you're a McLaren fan, Ferrari fan, you're an individual driver fan, whatever, we all wanted to see this at the front. It's just not happening. And then on top of this, to go post-race and say, oh, the car is just really difficult to drive. I just feel like this is a good example of how difficult this car is to drive at times, I'm sorry, you just can't use that excuse when the McLaren is hundreds of points ahead in the Constructors. You can't use that excuse. You can't.
You're doubled up on your next closest team.
You are smashing the competition. And I gave him the caveat earlier, look, maybe things just weren't quite there. You have to pull it together, fam. We keep rooting for this to be a championship battle, and Lando just feels like he has given up. He has found his excuses. He is disappointed, and he's just cool with it. And this is now, whether you want it to be or not, solely Oscar Piastri's championship to lose over the next 7 races. Yeah. Because after a near record level of consistency, I don't feel like he's going to DNF like this again. He's not going to have a weekend this vulnerable again.
No.
It's just not going to happen. So, yeah, from a racing perspective, it sucks. From a fan perspective, it sucks. And Lando fans, like yourself, incredibly let down. And I don't blame you. I would be just as frustrated, if not more so, if I was in your position. And as a racing fan, I'm disappointed. What do you guys think, though? TLPs. I mean, I want to know what the TLPs think. Do you have anything else you wanted to add here, or are we, Yeah,
I kind of get the sense that, and I don't ever want to directly call out a player or a driver's character, but just a part of me that kind of feels like Lando gave up on this before the fans did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could see why you would say that. It
feels me and you, a peek behind the curtain, if you will, for the TLPs. But we about race days and we talk about some things that happen. Sometimes we leave to talk about, for the podcast. But there's definitely some things we call and talk about. And I've voiced a lot of concerns and a lot of hope and a lot of optimism, and sometimes I've been pessimistic. But for the most part, I have rode as strong and as tough as I can through all this Lando stuff. And it could have been easy for me to just turn around and be like, look, it ain't going to happen. He ain't got it. But I rode up until this week, and there's been a lot of rough weeks, let me tell you, where Tristan's calling me and he's already laughing because he knows that Lando did something or another. And I've stayed still and I've stayed tough. There's just a part of me that kind of feels like the fans, myself included, hung on a little bit longer to that hope than Lando did. And I hope that's not true, but yeah, it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's like from a football perspective, it's like losing in the playoffs, right? It's like, oh man, it was right there, and it just slipped away.
With a good team.
Right.
Losing
With a good team.
With a good
you
team.
Can't, it sucks. I mean, there's still 7 races to go. Lando is the next closest competitor. You can never really rule anything out, but like from a performance perspective, from a body language perspective, from an excuses perspective, I mean, it just feels like he's throwing in the towel, man. Like the championship's not just going to fall in your lap. You got to go get it. You have to have drives at certain points in the season that are worthy of being a championship level, right? He had an amazing drive in Hungary. We really like walked out of the summer break going like, dude, like he's got the momentum. He's right here. And it feels like maybe in the Netherlands, it was just like, it ain't my year, bro. But then the same thing happens to Oscar here in, Baku. And he's just like, but like, I already gave up. Like, what?
Yeah.
Just take the opportunities, bro. And I just don't know. Look, there's 7 races to go. He has a lot of opportunities to still prove us wrong. But like, I feel like F1 fandom and everybody involved is just kind of like, dude, it is what it is at this point. Like, there's only but so much hopium we can give you. You got to believe in yourself. And this felt like a weekend, an example of him just not believing in himself. I don't know how to describe it. There was so much ambition at certain other points this year where he's making strategy calls on his own and trying different things. And this weekend, he just felt kind of resigned to it. It unfortunate.
It's like a different Lando every weekend.
Yeah. I don't know. It is what it is. But yeah, TLPs, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think this championship is donezo? How do you feel about Lando's comments? How do you feel about what's going on here? Honestly, I just want to know what you guys are thinking, because this is a very interesting time in Formula One, and especially an interesting dynamic here going on with McLaren, with Oscar, with Lando, etc. Let's revisit though. Let's take a little spin back around. We haven't done this yet, but this felt like a good time to revisit a couple of what's more likelies we've had this season, specifically walking into this weekend. And I wanted to just kind of highlight a couple of things, at least 2. I don't know if Kevin has any specifically, but I already had 2 I wanted to talk about. We walked into this weekend with an interesting one. I asked, were we going to get 3 rookies scoring points this weekend? Are we going to get 3 retirements? Neither of which happened, to our surprise. We had 2 rookies that were really close, and one that was, or a couple that were really close. Excuse me. Let me try to check for the race results here. But like, we got Kimi Antonelli scoring points. We got Isaac Hadjar rounding it out. Gabriel Bortoleto and Oliver Behrman were just so close. But I did want to take this moment to highlight that there were a lot of really impressive drives. We've ragged on Lando this weekend, but from a driving perspective, we got Kimi Antonelli in a P4. The dude stepped off European soil and just refound his confidence. I don't know how else to explain it. Carlos Sainz, of course, we waxed poetic about what he and Williams did this weekend. Liam Lawson, not a rookie, but P5, his best career result here. Fantastic drive from him. Yuki Tsunoda, the best drive I think he's had since he joined Red Bull, P6. Lewis Hamilton did break another one of our what's more likelies, because we speculated on whether or not he or Albon were going to place better this weekend. He did place better than Albon, but neither of those guys hit the goal that we had for them.
What about this one? Williams podium or Ferrari win?
Yep, and that's where I wanted. That's where I wanted to go. Man, isn't that sick?
That was for me.
Yeah, that was a fantastic question. We asked this one going into Monza, if I'm not mistaken. We started.
Yes, I do. I want to say it was Monza.
Yeah, we walked into Monza going like, man, this is their Italian Grand Prix, but, the rest of the season, what's going to happen if it happens? And crazy enough, yeah, we both bet on Williams, and Williams really did come through. I thought it would be really fun to just come back and,
We were just a week
revisit that.
early.
We were just a week early. You're absolutely right. But we kind of framed it for the rest of the season, if I'm not mistaken. You can check us on that if you're a dedicated listener. But man,
and I want to say that I want to say you were wrong about this one because I asked going into Baku, McLaren win constructors or the field takes top step. And I want to say that you picked McLaren to win the constructors.
Yeah, I think I did. I think you're
Shout
correct.
out to Max, aka the field.
The field did win. The field took the podium, all three spots. I mean, George Russell getting P2, Carlos Sainz, of course, rounding it out. Like McLaren were 7th and lower, and they just
we might have to keep up with
3.
these. What's more likely? We're trying
I'm trying to keep it.
I'm trying to keep tabs on some of
these. Yeah,
I did ask you. Do I pass you in P10 or Lando wins drivers championships? So I guess I just have to pass you in P10 then.
You've got 7 more race weekends to figure that one out. This was not the weekend for you to do that, unfortunately.
I thought
we'll revisit next week as we preview Singapore. Don't worry, but I mean, yeah, it was an interesting race weekend, and we did actually capitalize on a couple of these what's more likelies. Williams, once again, though, just hats off to them. I mean, they've been a highlight feature for what's more likely so far, and they've already accomplished one of the big ones that we've had. So.
I need to get some Williams gear, actually.
They had some pretty tough gear. I like the throwback-ish yellow stuff they've got going on, and I do not
need
like
some Williams gear.
Yellow.
My birthday's coming up, Tristan.
You've thrown a lot of ideas at me. But look, we've already gone
Can't say you don't have them.
Look, we've already gone a little bit further than I think we were expecting to on this podcast. We do have to wrap this thing up, but I did want to touch one more thing. Let's rate this race, whether it's 60 seconds or otherwise. But in my take, I'll start here. I'll let you think about it as I wax poetic for a moment. Look, we had some big drives from Max Verstappen, George Russell with an ambitious strategy that paid off. A crazy pit entry, by the way, if you go back and watch that clip. Carlos Sainz, of course, with a big highlight. Liam Lawson, like I just mentioned, huge drive from him. Yuki Tsunoda, huge drive from him. Isaac Hadjar rounding out the points. Bortoleto and Behrman also had really impressive drives too. Kimi Antonelli, P4. Only one DNF to the surprise of myself and Kevin.
Yeah.
And Oscar Piastri of all people.
They used them all in qualifying.
Incredibly surprising. Yeah, they really did. And then Lando Norris and McLaren, they still struggled anyway. Only trimmed the gap by 6 points. That was the underwhelming moment, I think, of the entire feature race anyway. At the end of it all, though, that middle third, that middle half, really, the first 25% of the race, the final 25% of the race, there was some intrigue, but the middle third really wasn't very highlight inducing. I think I could be a bit liberal on this. I'm going to go a 6 out of 10 for this race.
Ooh, 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, half the race was, it was okay, but it just wasn't quite as exciting as I think we were expecting it to be. I think we were expecting more safety cars, maybe a couple more DNFs. I think we both picked. I think I picked DNFs. You picked rookies. Both of us were technically wrong by the end of that, but historically there have been a lot more safety cars and a lot more incidents in Baku. This just was not one of those weekends.
So you remind me what you said. A 6?
Yeah, I gave it a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay. I'm going to use the decimal system. I'm going to run with. Let's see. Carlos Sainz taking the podium is big. That's a big influence because we love parity. We love it when different things happen, and that's a big thing. Max Verstappen getting the win. Maybe some might say, well, that's not exciting. I think it is exciting because it kind of adds a little spark, to the Drivers' Championship, just to have this conversation on Max being ridiculous and what he is possibly able to do. Mercedes had a good weekend. Some midfield teams had a good weekend. I'm going to go with a 7.2. I'm going to go 7.2.
Okay.
I love me some parity.
Look, I think for me, it was, there was a lot of interesting moments. Like results wise, this is a very fun one to look at. But watching the race, it was just a bit quiet for me. Max out of the front was just so obvious and unquestionable that it took a bit of the intrigue off of the front part of the race, the front pack. Kimi Antonelli trying to chase down Carlos Sainz was interesting. I really do wish they would have just showed that as the battle, because Lando Norris getting stuck behind Tsunoda and Lawson was kind of just sad to see. But, my rating is my rating. It is what it is. With that, though, that is going to do it for this episode of the Lap Podcast. We want to thank you guys so much for watching or listening all the way to the end. If you haven't joined the rest of the TLPs yet, help us chase the 100 subscriber mark before the end of this season. Subscribe to the channel. It costs you absolutely nothing at all to give us that support. Helps massively in the algorithm, puts us in front of more F1 fans like yourself. But until next time, I'm Tristan Ryans alongside Khaki Kevin Walker. Be safe, be well, and let's go racing.